Kia ora, good evening. Legal highs dominate the first part of our bulletin tonight, with news today that owner of the shop Impulse that was hit by arsonists early Friday morning is not appropriately licensed to retail legal high products. An arson attack in the early hours of Friday morning where two offenders damaged the Impulse premises on Ellis Road at South City, first by smashing a hole in the window with a baseball bat, followed quickly by the other offender throwing a petrol bomb inside, is still under investigation by police. An innocent inquiry with the Ministry of Health on Friday has unearthed some rather interesting information, in particular that the operator of the business Impulse, Mr Warren Skill, does not officially have a licence to retail legal highs. We asked the Ministry of Health on Friday for a response on the status of trading when a retail licence is under consideration via email. If a retailer has an application with the Ministry of Health for a licence to retail legal highs, but the licence is under consideration and not officially granted, is the retailer able to sell legal highs? Their response:
this depends on the terms advised by the authority. In the case of RET 0058, the authority has advised Mr Skill he is not able to trade while his application is under consideration.
Mr Skill does hold several other interim licences granted to the same company, so he can research, import and wholesale. So he has ability to research, import and wholesale. Joining me now to talk about this is Hunter Andrews from the newsroom. Business as usual today,
well,
Hunter.
Quite amazing really, isn't it? And, we want to get to the protest from Saturday because I was there and covered it, and a very moving experience actually hearing those stories. But I have to say that I just assumed that these two gentlemen who are trading in psychoactive substances in the city did have licences. It was your question actually to the Ministry of Health that confirmed that he in fact does not have a licence. I spoke to Warren today. He said that he was just getting back on his feet after the fire last week, and you know, obviously while we were there for 5 minutes. He didn't want to talk to us, but we were there for 5 minutes, and I think we've got some shots of what we saw. There were 3 or 4 people just visiting in that limited time that we were there. So if you just do the numbers, he's operating out of the back of his store now because obviously the damage to the front part. So, which is a whole nother story in itself, how that damage came about. But he is adamant that he has had very little contact with the Ministry of Health, and they've told us otherwise today. And also that he is under the understanding that he is fully licensed to sell these products. So the Ministry of Health received the licence application at the end of July last year. So let's say that in that time, in that 7 months, he has been trading. I'm hearing rumours, and this is only rumours, that perhaps someone like this would profit about $80,000 a month out of this.
There
so
certainly is a lot of money in the industry.
There is a lot of money.
The police weren't aware of it. The Invercargill City Council, Public Health South, who are the lead enforcement agency, the local MP, Peter Dunn's press secretary.
Everyone we've spoken to today seems astounded that it's gone this far, that this guy has been trading for so long without the appropriate licence. And you know, how do you calculate the damage that perhaps these drugs or these psychoactive substances have done to the community? Well, it's impossible to say, isn't it? But perhaps with 7 months less of trading, we could have seen a bit less impact. Yes, Rob Eadie, Peter Dunn's office, I actually went and saw Eric Roy today. He is dead against these substances. Of course, National MP for Invercargill, Eric Roy. He put me on to Rob Eadie, Peter Dunn's press officer, who was astounded also that this operation was still running in South Invercargill. Quite amazing, really. But we, as we go to air, we have not heard back from him. And you've had similar experiences with the Ministry of Health.
Yes,
today.
been in contact with the Ministry of Health several times today by phone and email, but no response to the questions that we've put to them, such as who is responsible for checking licences in these areas? Is it somebody at a local level or at a national level? Ultimately, it comes back to the Ministry of Health.
Well, as I said, I just assumed that these guys had licences. I mean, amazing really, and your question uncovered the truth really, that he in fact doesn't. And let's get to the Ministry of Health. So we have to have a psychoactive substance abuse officer, substance sales officer to actually enforce these laws and close this operation down. Well, we do have someone who's trained down here, but she, I understand it's a she, is not sworn.
That's correct, she's
so
not sworn,
act.
and Public Health South, in this case, are the lead enforcement agency, but they're not appropriately enforced to do that.
And we're hearing from the police that they can't act until they get something from the Ministry of Health, and we understand talking to Councillor Lindsay Thomas, who's very big on this issue, that the police can't act until they know what the Ministry of Health is going to do about this. So he may well be open tomorrow, quite possibly open tomorrow, trading again and selling these substances to all and sundry in Invercargill.
So just to clarify, he does have a wholesale licence, so he can in fact sell to another person with a retail licence, but he in fact cannot sell
That's right.
retail.
He cannot retail, and we saw it today, and he was adamant, as I say, on the phone talking to Mr. Skill. He said that he was under the impression that he had a full licence to operate, and that goes right back 7 months.
It's clearly some communication issues somewhere along the way. Hunter, you were at the protest on Saturday.
Yeah, let's move to the protest. It was amazing, really, the stories. I have been to a few protests, but there was a real feeling of anger there. People are totally frustrated. The stories, often from mums that got up to talk about their sons, that were having huge issues with a dependency with these products. Now, it's not only that. I spoke to Neville Corkery, and we'll just see a clip from him, an interview with him. He's from the Southland Beneficiaries Union. But this is what he's dealing with. Let's hear from Neville now.
What we're finding out of this is that a lot of people are actually getting trapped in unemployment because they're not in a position, because the stuff is so powerful, they can't motivate themselves to do anything. We're also finding people that are losing their positions because quite often what actually happens is that they avoid the drug testing, or some industries are not quite up to speed with testing legal highs, so they move on to legal highs to avoid the testing on the marijuana. They become addicted, then they start failing to turn up to work, and they actually start losing their positions and get trapped in a never-ending circle of unemployment or just sheer issues of violence, domestic violence, all those types of things start to developing. One of my concerns is too that we've heard feedback from younger people saying that there's people buying up to $100 or $200 worth of substance from the shop, and because the shop's not open all the time and so many people are heavily addicted to it, they're actually selling it at night times or in between payday and in between benefit, and people are making up to $600 or $700 on $100 worth of legal substance. So no matter what you look at, it's becoming a problem. Some of the shop owners would say, oh well, if we could have a 24-hour licence, we'd stop that exploitation. The exploitation starts at the very day that the shop opens at 8 o'clock in the morning or 9 o'clock in the morning.
There'll be a lot more action to come after the break. A lot of feeling at the meeting on Saturday at that protest. Hunter Andrews has more with that after the break. Welcome back. News today that Warren Skill, who owns the shop Impulse at South City, a retailer of legal highs, is not in fact licensed to sell legal highs. We've been in touch with the Ministry of Health today to get clarification around that. Apparently Warren has been informed already that he's not to retail those products, although he is in denial about that. Hunter's with me in studio. Hunter was at a protest around the same subject.
Yeah, absolutely. The protest at the weekend that sort of got us on sparked this really now. The next person we're going to hear from is Gary Tong, the Southland District Mayor. Now, there were two councillors, city councillors at this meeting. There were others that weren't. Lindsay Thomas, who's big on this, excluded himself because he's part of the policy-making process. So that's fair enough, I guess. But there was a sign saying, Tim and Gary, where are you? Well, Gary very much was there, and let's have a listen to what he says.
Our communities in Southland and all over New Zealand are slowly waking up to what this stuff is doing, what the legislation is actually meaning, and I think you're going to find that the momentum will not stop. It's going to get faster and faster throughout New Zealand.
I saw a sign out the front there saying, where are you, Tim and Gary? Well, Gary, you're definitely here.
I'm definitely here, Hunter, yeah, and I don't know why Tim isn't here. I thought he was going to be, to tell you the truth. Very, very impressed with the speakers at Wapna Place, you know, from the heart, and that is what's happening. These people are starting to feel this within their communities, what's happening to the young people, and not so young.
What are your thoughts on the LAPP?
It's legislation that's been put in by the government that we have to enforce or enact. There's no regulations in force yet until 2015, so really we have to, you know, get the feelings of the people. That's the feelings of the people and behind us here. They don't want this at all.
And I see Rebecca Arminston, Councillor Rebecca Arminston there. One person
And
who
Peter
wasn't
Kidd as
there,
well.
Peter Kidd as well, one person missing was Sarah Dowie.
Yes, Sarah Dowie wasn't there, and I did contact her today because we're going to go into a piece by Leslie Soper, of course, the Labor candidate for Invercargill in the forthcoming election. Sarah Dowie was actually in Dunedin at a women's expo that apparently she'd been committed to for a long time and was actually unaware that this protest was taking place. And, you know, I've certainly known about it for a couple of months now, so you know, Sarah Dowie perhaps missed an opportunity there to front up and talk. But as she said, she was unavailable for comment today. She was in Te Anau working, but she was in Dunedin for that. So let's listen. Leslie Soper obviously went political on this, so let's have a listen to what she says.
There should be someone here defending what's a shoddy piece of legislation that they've put in place, because they had the opportunity to actually have a proper discussion and to let New Zealanders have a discussion about the Misuse of Drugs Act, and they completely messed up that opportunity, and they've ended up with a bad, rushed piece of legislation.
Aren't they damned if they do and damned if they don't, though? Because the big elephant in the room really is that you make it illegal, then it's driven underground and it becomes more of a police problem.
They could have had this discussion in 2009, very soon after the change of government. Labor had already commissioned a report. The Law Commission came back and said, review the entire Misuse of Drugs Act. New Zealanders could have had the conversation about synthetic highs, about natural cannabis, about the whole rewriting of the Misuse of Drugs Act so that it was a 21st century act. They've missed the opportunity here, and that we need to do that. We need to have that discussion, and I'm really passionate about that when I'm back in government.
There's real anger here, isn't there?
There are absolute anger, and one thing I did say, because people were getting a bit angry at the local councils, was don't allow the distraction of being angry at the local councils who have been put in a really invidious position by this legislation of the government's. Local councils have basically been told, draw a line about where it's legal to sell the products in your area, but the anger needs to be at the government who's allowed a situation where this rotten synthetic stuff can be legally sold on the streets. Natural cannabis is still illegal, and we haven't had the mature discussion in New Zealand about Misuse of Drugs Act.
An election issue that may creep up on the government, do you think?
I think very definitely an election issue, and I think it is noticeable the National Party weren't here defending this bit of legislation. Where was the National Party's candidate? It's a big issue, and it will get bigger because this anger that people feel is going to continue. The families that we're talking about, the kids who are affected, the lives that have been wrecked, the mental health services that haven't been able to provide the necessary counselling, etc. It's going to continue to be an issue that these people and others will continue to be angry about.
Yes, we're probably only seeing the tip of the iceberg at this point in time, I suspect, which is a bit of a worry.
Let's just reiterate that Sarah Dowie did contact her today, and she did say that as a mother she would be very concerned. I did put to her that a lot of mothers were up there talking about problems with usually sons with these psychoactive drugs, and she was saying that as a mother she would be very concerned as well, and you know, she appreciates these guys exercising their right to protest. And may I say, there was about 100 there, but everyone was tooting as they were driving past. So
Quite, you mentioned it was a bit of a mob feeling.
yeah, it was. That's the first time I've felt that sort of genuine anger, and that's that hint. You read a lot about history, about things that get out of control. It sort of felt that it wasn't going to, but you could see how it could happen in certain circumstances. Anyway, we have one more piece, and this is Elizabeth Marito, who is actually, she was one of the activists and one of the organisers, and we just got a quick word with her, and she did mention that break-in, that the parents were pushed so far that they actually wanted, possibly parents, we're not sure, pushed so far that they wanted to burn that store down in South Invercargill.
Well, you know, it's hard to say where this is going to lead to. I'm not sure how effective our submissions and our petition is going to be, but I definitely hope that it's going to be highly effective in terms of a collective committee of councils going to Parliament all together. I do feel that if they go individually, it's not going to be as effective. So we need to communicate with the rest of the regions that are joining us in this force today.
And we're not condoning what may or may not have happened a couple of nights ago in South Invercargill.
What happened a couple of nights ago is a completely different event to what we're fighting for today. What happened out there is two individuals voicing their reactions on how they feel about legal highs. Obviously it's affected them personally, obviously it's affected their families, and they've found that there's no other way to go about this issue, and they've gone to an extreme that we don't condone. all of us, we do not condone that behaviour. We do feel like it's unfortunate for the people that could have possibly been injured in that event. But that does not...
Shows the anger though, doesn't
it shows the anger that this community has. Come on, Invercargill... The most I see on Invercargill is Tim Shadbolt. It has a very good name for Invercargill. And seeing something this radical in terms of drugs is a very big cry out for such a community that's quite humble and not as extravagant or radical as most cities would be in New Zealand.
Watch this space. There will be more to come on this issue going forward. Tonight on Sport, we follow up the Highlanders after their win in Dunedin on Friday night. From the news team, good night.